Hello, my name is Mark Deegan, Director of Corporate Marketing with ColorID. Welcome to the final portion of our summer webinar series titled Printers, Putting the Color in ColorID. Today, David Stallsmith, Director of Product Management, is going to cover the vast array of ID badge printers for the higher education industry. We'll be recording and sharing this webinar, and we encourage you to forward to your peers within the industry. Send all your questions through the GoToWebinar Q&A window, and we'll cover those at the end of today's session. If you happen to miss any of the previous webinars, we're happy to share those with you all. Please submit a request to sales@colorid.com or visit our YouTube page. It's been a pleasure hosting this series for you all. I hope you've all gained insight and knowledge that you previously did not. Remember, our account reps are always ready to have a quick discussion with you on anything we've covered these past few weeks. So with that being said, let's jump into the final webinar. David, it's all yours.
Great, thanks, Mark. ColorID, color, that first word there. And moving right along here. There we go. When ColorID started out in 1999, two gentlemen named Smith had a friend who said, you know, you can sell these Sony ribbons to people who have ID printers. And they had a little logo, and it was called, they named the company ColorID because they were color ribbons, and it was simply a better ribbon. And it was going to be a website .com business, which we still are, but also have grown into much more than that. So that's how ColorID started, printer ribbons. A lot has changed in the world in the 21 years since, almost 22 years now. So let's talk for a moment about card printing basics. And some of this will be familiar to all of you, but hopefully some of it will be new and interesting. Dye sub print heads, which is the most common way of getting color onto a card, is dye sublimation. It actually, through the digital print head, heats up the pixels on the glass coated print head, which then cause the dye to turn into a gas, and it goes into the surface of either the card or the transfer film. They come now in 300 and 600 DPI. More dots per inch means higher resolution, better quality printing. Print heads in direct-to-card printers have a warranty that are pretty good, but if you reach in there with a great big ring and bang it against the print head as you're messing around in your printer someday and knock out a pixel, that's not going to be under warranty. So just be very careful about those print heads when you're reaching into your printers. If you have a reverse transfer printer, those tend to have lifetime warranties on their print heads because they print on transfer film, not on cards. So using the print head as a starting point, then there are two ways generally to get ink into and onto these cards. There's direct to card is the first one, and I threw up a picture here of, I know our tech guys back at ColorID, if they were watching this right now, they would be pretty excited to see the DTC 550. That had a steel chassis. People like that printer. But the print head goes across the ribbon. The card is directly under the ribbon. The dye goes straight into the card. These printers are generally quite quick. They are among the most cost-effective overall, because it's a fairly simple process. And in the ID card business, direct to card is by far the most common type of printer. Now, there are a couple things around card edges that you'll hear discussed. You'll hear about edge-to-edge printing, and that sounds pretty good, right? Edge-to-edge. But when you have edge-to-edge, it's usually a direct-to-card printer, and it doesn't mean over the edge. And so there's often a little white line where the print head doesn't quite reach to the edge of the card. The card maker, the card printer makers are continually pushing that little white line off the edge of the card by getting better and better with the way they manage the print head at the edge of the card. But it's kind of like that thing where you never quite, if you always take a step half the distance between you and the wall, you will never reach the wall, right? So same thing with here. I think there's always going to be just a little bit of edge with a direct-to-card printer. If you really need to have a full cover of your cards with your school color or a graphic, then, and many schools do this, order the cards with pre-printing, and then the cards are made on a great big litho press. The printing goes all the way over the edge. The cards are cut out of that image, and so there is no white edge on those. If you do need to go over the edge and you don't want that white rim, then you want a full bleed card, is the lithographic printing language for it. And reverse transfer printers do that, and now inkjet printers do that, which is kind of interesting. We'll talk about those. The reverse transfer process is probably familiar to most of you, but I'll just review it quickly here. The die sub print head goes over the ribbon, which is then over transfer film instead of the card itself. And so the image is printed in reverse on the clear transfer film. You can see it in the picture there. And then the film is applied to the surface of the card. Now, versus direct-to-card printing, usually the image quality is better, but because there's a film being applied to the card, it can take a little longer to print the card. It is more secure because the printing is under a film, and it does cost a little bit more in most cases because you have to buy film. I mentioned a moment ago inkjet printing. Now, of course, we're all familiar with inkjet. We have had them at times on our desks, sometimes for years, and they come with all these cartridges you're seeing here. Now, this is the SwiftPro inkjet printer. This came out a number of years ago. It prints any size badge you want, and it is really fast. It's not really a card printer. And now the big news this year is HID has introduced, actually it was last year, introduced inkjet printing for ID cards. So some good news there that we will discuss. There's some other things that you do with card printers, and most of these are familiar. You can order them with a lamination unit. We'll talk about that. Mag encoders, very familiar, but you only get one mag stripe encoder in a printer. I don't know of any desktop printers that come with two mag encoders. So if you have two mag stripes, as many schools do, you have to encode one mag stripe, and then you have to flip the card around and put it back in the printer to encode the other mag stripe, or order your cards with pre-encoded mag stripes. All different ways to solve that problem, but you get one mag encoder per printer. There are also many types of smart card encoders, contact, contactless, procs, all kinds of things like that are available for printers. The latest kind of cool upgrade for printers is the dual side module upgrade. And the companies that make card printers have figured out that it's less expensive or something for some reason to make a printer with the dual-sided module built into it. But if you only want a single-sided printer, you pay less, and you can't use the dual-sided module. But then if you want to upgrade it at some point, you just get the upgrade module, and you can see one here going into a Zebra printer, which is kind of like a ribbon, and you put it in there and you cycle the printer, and there's a little chip in there, and it talks to the printer and it says you are now a two-sided printer, and the printer is now a two-sided printer. And this works Zebra 300 series, HID DTC 1500 can be upgraded to dual side this way. Magicard does it with their 300 and 600s, and Evolis does this. And there may be some others. I was looking to see what all the printers are that have this capability, but mostly they're direct to cards, you know, mid price range generally, but pretty handy. You order a single side, you want to upgrade later to dual side, you can do that. No screwdriver required. The lamination that so many universities use, very familiar. You can laminate one side of the card, you can laminate two sides, you can get laminate film for the back that is only half a patch, so it doesn't cover your mag stripe. If you're using a reverse transfer film, that's already a thin layer of film protecting your printing, but you can go over that with lamination and add even more protection. And then if you want, you can add custom holograms, and here's just an example of what's available in those hidden holograms: colors, microtext, UV inks that are only visible under UV light, all kinds of crazy stuff you can do. You can spend quite a bit of money getting a very custom and fancy holographic overlay. If you ever want to see what do those look like, usually your state driver's license has pretty cool overlays on them. So, a lot of times you can take a look at that and just see what's possible. In the lamination world, a number of years ago, Zebra started making printers with wasteless or linerless lamination. And the liner is the film that the laminate material is stuck to. So a traditional laminator, you have your roll of film with all the individual patches on there, and when it goes through the card goes through the printer, each patch is removed from the film and stuck onto the card. But with the wasteless or linerless lamination, there is no film. It's only the patch itself. It's the width of the card. It goes on very nicely. It almost completely covers the card. There's no big gap around the edges like there has been. And then there's no film at the end to dispose of. You have only the spindle or the bobbin when you're done. ZXP 7 and 9 have had this for a number of years, and now HID 5500 and 6600 laminators have wasteless or linerless lamination. An interesting thing, this concept has been around for a number of years. It was limited to just a few printer lines, but we're starting to see more printer manufacturers striking deals with people who sell printers, dealers, and they're creating for them proprietary models. And we've been approached by ColorID. Hey, if you'd like, we can brand a printer for you. Well, that's kind of cool, because now maybe a Magicard or whatever printer, instead of saying Magicard, it says ColorID on it. But the other thing the printer company likes to do, the manufacturer, is they like to put a chip in the ribbons so that the ribbons will only work on printers that came from the company that sold you the printer. So the printer and the ribbons from then on, have to be purchased from the same dealer. This has not been a preferred method of business for ColorID. We like to keep our customers' options open so that they can continue to do business with ColorID because they want to, not because they have to. And so we have resisted rather vigorously in the cases of some aggressive manufacturers. Man, you got to do this. Just everybody's doing it. Sell this printer. We'll put your brand on it. Then they can only buy the ribbons from you. And it has just been a source of frustration for a lot of our customers, because they go online, they buy a new printer. And here's a great example: the HTP 6600 XE. You see that XE on the end? If you go on the HID website and you look up HTP 6600, there are no XEs. They're not there. But you go on some other company's website, there it is. So in that case, you buy that printer online, you get a great price on it from that dealer. The downside, of course, is you go to buy ribbons and you call ColorID. Hey, we've been buying ribbons from you for years. Can we buy ribbons for our new 6600? We say, sure. And we send you a box of ribbons, and they don't work on your printer. And the reason is because your printer was bought from a company that set things up so you can only buy ribbons from them to work on your new printer. So anyway, just a little warning, a little heads up, it's out there. A bunch of companies, Zebra, HID's doing it, Matica has been doing it for years, and other companies too. It's out there. Just pay attention. And the latest thing we've noticed, there are these two little secret letters at the end of the model number, kind of tip the hand on whether it's a proprietary printer or not. If you love the company you're buying the printer from and you want to buy ribbons from them and they're giving you a good deal on all of that, perfect. Everything's wonderful and there's no reason not to do that. But if you like to keep your options open, that is a path that will not allow you to do that. Some new cool features in ribbon security. Magicard calls it digital shredding, renders data irrecoverable, and SwiftPro from NiSCA has the same kind of thing where they scramble the data on the ribbon after it prints whatever you printed on your card. So now you don't have to worry about shredding or disposing of your ribbons securely. All the data that was on your ribbons before, as soon as the card job is done, that ribbon no longer has recognizable data left on the spool. The HID HTP 6600 we'll have this sometime before the end of this year, we understand. We'll see how that goes, but it is a new feature that is being accepted by the various printer manufacturers. We always spend a little bit of time talking about readers, encoders, printers, software, because capturing and encoding contactless cards, not mag stripes, but contactless cards in line, in other words, in the printer during the printing process, is still very tricky. And so the software has to align with the encoder and often with the printer itself. So you always have to make sure that your software is supporting the encoder either to read, Prox, Desfire, CIOS, iClass, whatever it is, or to encode it. You can't just order a printer and it says, oh, it has a contactless encoder, and expect to take it out of the box, plug it into whatever software you have, and have it work. I mean, it might, but only because somebody did some work to make all those things work together. So software companies have limited resources. They tend to support the most common printers and encoders, the most requested. And sometimes if it's a good software company and you want them to support a very particular piece of hardware, you can pay them an extra fee and they'll do that for you. But it's still something you have to be very careful when you order. So we spend a lot of time at ColorID helping customers figure this stuff out. You know, the type of card, the type of software, the printer, and the encoder. RFIDs has a keystroking encoder. It works great at the desktop, works with any software. You can only stick it in a few printers. We've done that at ColorID. It's kind of a duct tape hack. But it can work with certain softwares. If that's an option for you, give us a call and we'll talk about that. But there are a lot of encoders now that are going into printers. Probably the most common across the range of printer manufacturers are OmniKey encoders. The 5127 is the newest popular model. There's a picture of the mini board. There's one called an encoder, there's one called a programmer. They're both called 5127s by OmniKey, so just extending the confusion there. Dual Eye makes dual and single wire boards. Identiv, Elatech, RFIDs, Elictus, which shows up in the Evolis printer. There are just a lot of different pieces of hardware now the printer companies are putting in their printers. So let's talk about the printers themselves. We'll start off with HID. ColorID does provide and support a lot of HID printers. The company is very serious about the devices they manufacture, and their support is terrific. Whenever I go back to ColorID's Service Bureau Tech Department and I say, what's the printer? They say HID. Why? Support. We call, they have answers, they answer the phone, and they're very helpful. Most other printer manufacturers, that's not always the case. But HID has, they bought Fargo a long time ago, and they have kept a very strong business unit there as the Fargo printer manufacturer group within HID. So that's good. And a lot of the folks that were there with Fargo are still there at HID. So it's been a long time. The 4500 has been out 9 years now, and it has been updated many times, but it's still very popular. That is a laminator on top, dual side laminator if you want, and it has a very small footprint for this kind of printer. It also has hoppers that are either on both ends, in and out, or both hoppers in and out on one end. So depending on your desk space and configuration of your office, you can order the printer one way or the other and fit your space even more efficiently for use. So very nice. This is the 1500. Looks pretty familiar. Back up a minute. Yeah, it looks a lot the same. There are some differences. It's less expensive. It does not have the screen. So you can go to your PC and see what's going on with your printer, but you don't have a screen there to get immediate feedback right at the printer itself. But it's a very good machine. It does a nice job, and it's very attractively priced. The DTC 5500 LMX, if you recall a few slides ago, I showed you a picture of the 550, which is the 5500 dreaming of its forebear, the 550. It's a single piece chassis printer, so it comes with dual lam and dual side all in one piece. It's not something you bolt together. You get this printer, you get everything. It's a direct-to-card printer. It's quick, it's efficient, it's made for high volume. It uses the wasteless lamb, and it has HID's ion technology for fast heat up, which is their latest heating up process. And that's a big deal for printers. That's a lamb thing. The lamb needs to heat up enough so that when the card goes through, the laminator's hot enough to, melt the thing onto the card. So that is really what, you can, I was looking at stats. I thought, should I do a speed stat? This printer's claims 200 cards per hour. This is 180 cards. This is 240 cards per hour, one side. I mean, it would be almost indecipherable because it's, full color one side, monochrome two side, but the other thing that makes such a big difference is the way people use card printers. It's one thing to be cranking through 500 cards on 3 printers and just cranking out a job, and they get heated up and you just keep printing and printing and printing one right after another. But day-to-day use, somebody needs a card, you make them a card. Somebody else 7 minutes later comes in, they need a card. Well, the printer's kind of cooled off, or maybe it's 20 minutes later and you have to wait for it to warm up. So now, even though it can print 210 cards per hour, it takes 1.5 minutes for the laminator to warm up so you can print 1 card. And that's every time you do it on this intermittent schedule. So there are a lot of things that affect print speed that are not just the published number of cards per hour. So I thought I'd mention that while we're on that slide. This is a reverse transfer printer, the HTP 5000. It was the first HID reverse transfer printer. It has been around for quite a long time, and they continue to upgrade and improve this. It is just really a solid printer. HID introduced the 5600 a few years ago with 600 DPI, but then with the introduction of the 6600, there was redundant. You had a 5000, you had a 6600 with 600 DPI. 5600 just was sitting there by itself, looking like a 5000 with the capability of a 6600 sort of, and so it was retired. There are a lot of them out there. They have a lot of parts that are interoperable with the 5000, so not necessarily all of them, but it is well supported at this point. I know we have customers, we have one right now buying a 5600, so from stock. Anyway, it's end of life, but not forgotten and still there, very much in spirit. The HTP 6600, now the flagship of the HID line, simultaneous print and retransfer. So it can be printing on the film while it's applying the previous film to another card. Kind of crazy. This card path improvement is something, or maybe it meant laminate. I have to double check that. Sorry about that to all of you listening. There it is, up to 230 cards per hour, one side with transfer film. Ion technology heats up fast, both for laminating and for retransfer application. The wasteless lamb, same as the 5500, very good image quality. So 6600, it's new. HID's worked a lot of bugs out of it, and it's a very solid, and for reverse transfer, very quick printer right now. This is a surprising little model that HID popped out about a year ago, and it is an inkjet printer. And like I said, we're very familiar with inkjet because we've had them on our desks, and inkjet does magical things even for Volkswagen Beetles. But it is really a new method for ID card printing. It has snap-in cartridges. Look at the DPI, not 300 DPI, but 600 by 1200. Very high resolution. Because it's spraying onto the card, it's not a printhead traveling over to the card. It can spray over the edge a little bit. And it can, so no border, none of that white rim on your card. It does not require special card coatings, which was what inkjet printers in the past did require. They just didn't work very well on PVC and polyethylene, but now it prints right onto the card. It does have a contactless encoder, but this model does not have mag stripe yet, and it is only single side at this point. So I'm showing this to you. It's a cool concept for university use. If you're printing single-side alumni cards without mag stripes, this could be a very nice device for you, but for everyday student cards, probably not so much. It is speed like a direct-to-card. It has a premium, in other words, even a little bit slower, just like your desktop inkjet. You can slow it down and print higher quality, or you can speed it up and get just slightly lower resolution. So kind of a cool concept there. And then HID went one step beyond that and introduced, for those of you, and this came up 15 years ago, we were working with a large school, and they had a $500,000 data card financial card printer. I mean, it was, the size of it took up the whole room essentially where they had the card printer. It was fast, it was efficient, it was extremely expensive. They went to desktop printers. They bought 15 desktop printers to replace that one machine. But the machine was end of life because they couldn't get parts for it anymore, and they were spending so much to repair it that going to 15 desktop printers was actually in many ways better for them. So there's a big gap between commercial card production and printing and desktop card production and printing. And lots and lots of schools, even with many tens of thousands of students, have half a dozen printers cranking out cards during peak periods. This printer right here, the Element, is designed to fill that gap. It's not a $500,000 and it's not $5,000. It's in the middle there, but it is built for high volume production. So if you are very serious about your card production, it has a lot of really cool features. It has a touch screen and an onboard camera system. It will crank out up to 300 cards per hour. Now that's a significant number. It uses UV ink. In other words, it sprays the inkjet, sprays it on the card, and then cures it with UV light, which makes it very durable. You can also layer ink or clear ink over for a type of lamination protection over the card. So if anybody's been thinking, man, if we could just buy a bigger printer instead of a bunch of small ones, this is it. Take a look. It's out there. Moving right along, Zebra. Let's talk about these guys. Back in the first slide there, if you notice that Sony ribbon was for an Eltron printer. Eltron got bought by Zebra. Zebra is the barcode giant around the world. They make scanners and printers for every barcode type of device for everybody, and do a great job of it, but they still keep their card line going, and they're still quite innovative. They're changing the names of their models from ZXP, which they still have ZXP7, direct-to-card, ZXP9, reverse transfer, but the new lines are ZC. So when you see ZC, you know it's a newer model. However, ZXP7, still very fast, still very efficient. It is a big footprint, but it cranks through the cards, and it has wasteless lam, just like the two models of the HID printers we looked at. And if you get the Pro model, ZXP7 Pro, it has a very cool feature, first in, first out. In other words, it has a motorized output hopper so that it keeps the cards in the same order that they were printed. You don't have to reverse your cards when you take them out. I don't know that would always be a useful feature, but there are times that could be, and this is a printer that will do that for you. Zebra introduced the ZXP8, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, and they did a good job with it in the concept that they print in landscape because the narrow edge of the card is so the print head is wider and goes along the narrow edge, and it also prints on the transfer film so that both sides of the transfer film are printed, and then it's wrapped around the card and fused to the card in one pass. This process caused them a lot of trouble for the first few years, but they've pretty well worked that out. So now the ZXP9 is very quick, reverse transfer, also has wasteless lam. If you're looking for a small footprint, very reliable, no lamination desktop printer, the ZC350s are really nice. We sell quite a number of these, and everybody's pleased with them. Nice big screen on there, fast, quiet, Like I said, does not have LAN, does have Wi-Fi. That's kind of cool. So, you know, no wires necessarily. And the screen even carries built-in videos for assistance. So ribbons, cards, clearing jams, people not familiar or need some help working with the printer don't even have to go to another screen. They can just look up support right there on the printer. Zebra has a lot of interesting ribbon options. More than probably most of the other manufacturers. Pearlescent, silver underneath. They have, you know, just very cool things that are available if you're looking for a little more unique look for your cards. Moving right along, NiSCA Kanematsu. NiSCA got bought by, changed. They were always Kanematsu. They kind of are switching to the Kanematsu name from NiSCA. They did an interesting thing this last year. They bought the JVC printer. Now, JVC is familiar. If you look at this model, you'll probably recognize it, having seen it with many brand names on it. This was another one of those printers that it's such a solid platform, reverse transfer, that a lot of companies put their own brand on there. This year, Kanematsu bought the JVC printer. So this is now the SwiftPro. SwiftPro is pretty cool. They have some pretty aggressive pricing going on with that. So if you're looking at reverse transfer and you're looking for something different, maybe look at this. It does have the K-panel erase security feature that I mentioned earlier is part of the SwiftPro printer, comes with it. And then if you're looking again for more of a kind of commercial high security upgrade, you can get a very nice laser unit to attach to your printer. So there's a printer, a laminator, and then a laser, and it will either burn things into the surface of the card or you know, just all the things laser can do, etch, you know, micro. It's incredibly precise and very customized in appearance when you've used it. A few other card printer manufacturers to take a look at here. Evolis, they are in France. They make cards. They sell a lot of ribbons, printers. They sell a lot of printers all around the world. They have, you know, they're one of the newer companies, and they have done very well because their printers are just solid and they work and they're simple. The nice thing about the Primacy, again, has, if you were looking for a small footprint, input, output hoppers both on the front. So kind of cool there. Evolis also has the Advancia printer, which is the same type of printer that NiSCA was selling under a different name. NiSCA has now discontinued that in their brand because they went to the SwiftPro. But Evolis continues to carry this very nice reverse transfer printer as the Advancia. So you know, just a lot of companies making a lot of good quality machines these days. Other big news this year, Magicard was bought by Brady Corporation. If you buy lanyards or badge holders or any kind of accessories from ColorID, more than likely they are Brady accessories. They have been a partner of ours for a very long time, and they make a lot. It's, you know, Brady Corporation makes all kinds of industrial tags, and it's a large international corporation. And now they have bought the UK-based Magicard. So Magicard is now a Brady Corporation. Magicard continues, the 600 and the 300 are their new models. They continue to offer their famous warranty that put them on the map, because access control dealers for years would offer a Magicard printer. They would sell the Magicard printer to the people that bought their access control system. And the reason they liked Magicard so much is because Magicard had a 3-year warranty with the loan printer or hot swap. So the dealer dropped off the printer. The dealer did not want to come back and visit you unless he had a contract to do so. He really didn't want to deal with ID printers because he makes his money hanging cameras and running wire and putting in alarm systems. So when your printer had trouble, within 3 years, you contacted Magicard, and if they couldn't fix it over the phone, they would send you a new printer right away. So this really helped Magicard build their business because of this 3-year loan printer model, and that continues. They also built a reverse transfer printer a number of years ago. It didn't go so well. They pulled it back. Now they've introduced a new one. We're kind of waiting to see how this one goes, but it's out there. And then another company that's making some nice inroads into North America is IDP. They're based in Korea. They have a very unique design concept here, very modular, and it's out there. So, you know, if you're shopping printers, we've actually had some customers ask us about these. So we don't have a lot of experience with them at ColorID, but I thought just worth mentioning. And then if you're looking for something a little different, the large format printer that Zebra makes, the ZC10L, is direct to card. So it has a very wide print head, and it makes a 5.5 by 3.5 card, which is kind of perfect size for conferences and sporting event credentials. It also cranks them out at almost 200 cards per hour. So very solid direct to card printer, does a great job of that. And I have to mention the Swift Color printer. I showed it early in the presentation. This is inkjet, and the first time we saw this 6, 7, 8 years ago at ColorID, this is a NiSCA product, Kanematsu. It will print large format, small, it'll print anything. The cards have to be coded. What is really unique about this is how fast it is. You know, after watching cards come out of die sub printers, you know, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 seconds, this thing, you hit print, it spits it out. You hit print 10, I mean, it is spitting them out so fast you can't believe it. But the cards have to be coded, so you can't just use a regular plastic card. And it is very finicky. You should not ever move it. Once you set it up and get it running, don't move it, because it just is very sensitive to disruption. But when it's set up and running, it's great. So I just mentioned it. If you need really big format, you need to print fast, this will get it done. And then based on everything we've said today, what can we expect in the card printer world in the future? And I have to say, inkjet is the new thing, and it looks very promising. We saw the Swift Color, which is very impressive in speed and size, and yet is finicky. We've seen HID introduce it's not quite as fast, but they're now introduced 2 different styles of inkjet printers, and we're wondering if we're going to see more manufacturers move in this direction. One thing about inkjet that's cool is you're not burning 4 ribbon panels to print one little photo on a card. If you have pre-printed cards and all you're printing is a photo, you're only using as much ink as it takes to print that little photo, and the rest of the card, you don't waste any media on it. So inkjet has some real advantages, and it's quick, and with the UV curing, it's very durable. So a lot going on there. Obviously, reverse transfer is becoming more widely offered and more successful. I mean, how many do we just see here? How many reverse transfer printers I just showed in this? They won't replace direct to card, I don't think, because they're more complicated and a little more expensive, but they are certainly coming on. And just in general, incremental improvements will continue. Card path improvements, like how many different things can you do inside your printer at one time? Can you print on the reverse transfer film and then be sticking that on the card at the same time the next reverse transfer film image is being printed? Can you laminate 1 or 2 cards simultaneously with printing them in the other part of the printer at the same time and encode them? I mean, this is just a lot of things are being improved for speed and reliability. Of course, technology moves on, and ID card printers are very competitive. Obviously, there are many companies offering quite similar products. The support and the responsiveness of the companies that make the printers is really what differentiates one from another. So if you want to buy a printer and it looks cool and has a lot of cool features, but it's not well supported, it's not necessarily a great transaction. There are other companies who make very good units, maybe missing one feature that you have fallen in love with. But honestly, if you get good support, you'll forget all about that feature in a hurry whenever things don't go well. So anyway, encoding support will continue to improve. The software is getting more versatile, and the more customers are encoding and reading cards in line, and so all of that will require more support. And so a lot of good things. There's a lot of, it's hardware. It's just printing on a card. We thought everything was going to be mobile by now. It's not. in the card, people who make card printers and contribute to the production of cards, continue to make better products and to support them better. So with all of that, that's what I have to say about card printing.
Good stuff, David.
Thanks, Mark.
I think that was a lot of content, a lot of good content. And for first this webinar series, we don't have any incoming questions for the moment. So well done, you know, crickets.
Thanks.
It's good stuff.
All right.
So yeah, thank you all again for attending our 6-part webinar series. We really do appreciate your time so very much. This webinar series was a product showcase that covered the vast array of products and solutions that we can cover and offer you guys. Whether you're interested in migrating to managing identities on the cloud or staying put with desktop ID software, corralling your fleet of printers, there are open platform third-party solutions available today that have been vetted and they work really, really well. And when it comes to contactless credentials, yeah, there can be so many things to consider and it can be daunting. There's a reason why ColorID has invested so much into their product management team. They have been tasked to know everything about the latest and greatest options so we can bypass all those proprietary, non-compatible, uber expensive credentials that fill the credential landscape. And after we understand your current or future identity ecosystem, the right option for you will be crystal clear. And as always, ColorID account representatives are here to talk or email with you all on any questions you might have for us for your current or future project. Thank you again for participating. On behalf of David and myself and everyone at ColorID, we hope you all have a wonderful summer. Goodbye, everyone.